Guys, it's Alexander Dahl with Manifest Brutality again. I'm just checking in this week. There's not really any updates in regards to the collaboration project on Reddit. The track is still out there on SoundCloud. I know there's one guy working on it, so I'm just waiting for him to get back. I'll probably send him an email just to see if there's anything I can help him with, or where he's at with it. Potentially I might just start doing a couple parts on it myself, throw it back out there and see if potentially anybody else takes more interest in it. So that's in progress, and that's the track 2 of the collaboration project. And then other than that, it's business as usual. I've been mixing down the tracks for the instrumental tracks that have been recorded over the past year for the album coming out next Halloween. So that's kind of what I've been doing on the interim between the collaboration project and releasing that stuff. Other than that, I've kind of just been doing other stuff, life stuff, as it were. So today, I kind of want to talk about something that I saw posted. And basically it's about perception of ability and how an artist or musician or performer perceives their ability as they grow and develop with ability. The specific post that I saw that I'm talking about referenced a person who was growing in ability with their instrument. This person, I believe, was playing saxophone. And they were going to school for it and was approaching the end of their career in college. And basically their stance on it was the more that they began to understand and the more that they knew about music, they felt like they were becoming a worse musician. And they were kind of posing the question of whether or not that is common for the creative type. And I can say for myself that that's definitely true. The more that I grow and understand and develop my skill set, the more I realize, or the more, I shouldn't say the more I realize, although I'm sure there's some people that would prefer me to phrase it that way. I should say the more that I am overly critical of myself and that I don't develop what I want. And to a certain extent, it's true. When I sit down to start writing a song, it doesn't necessarily always come out the way that I intended to. It doesn't always come out in the vein of music or genre that I want it to. And I used to struggle with that a lot when I was first developing and writing music. When I was a teenager, playing around with like MIDI instruments on Microsoft Studio 4, I wrote several like basic instrument MIDI tracks that, you know, they didn't come out to what I wanted. They didn't hit the vein that I was going for. And I remember playing them back from my dad, and my dad was like, "Oh, well, this doesn't sound like the kind of music you listen to." And it's just like, well, I don't know what it is. But looking back at those songs, I mean, they weren't terrible. They weren't great. Since, you know, they were made by a 15-year-old, but I don't know, for what they weren't bad. But I didn't have a way to put vocals on them either. That's going off on a complete tangent, though, and we can discuss that tangent topic some other time about development and how we all became the people that we are. But what I want to talk about specifically is ability and how we perceive it. So this person, as I stated, was gaining more knowledge about music theory and production and writing music, and the more that they learned about the composition of a song and how to compose a song, they began to become overly critical about the music that they were currently in the process of creating and decided that it didn't live up to what they wanted. Now, there's a couple different avenues to look at this, and One of them is destructive and focuses on denigration, and the other one is solution-based and focuses on progression. The denigration side of it is obvious. It's, well, if you don't think you're any good, then maybe you shouldn't do it, or have somebody else do it for you. And that is just completely defeatist, and somebody that's in the creative community should never yield to that mentality, because that's just, it's soul crushing, which gets into another avenue of the denigration that eventually will rear its ugly head. But as I stated in my last video about denigration, it's a topic that I don't like to hash out too much, so the various aspects of it will be scattered and peppered in there. But the solution focus of it is, you may not be where you want to be. You may not be producing what you want to be or creating what you want to be, but you have to do something in order to grow. You can't just immediately leap 10 steps ahead of where you are and expect to be coming up with exactly what you intend to hear. Granted, there are geniuses of true tone and the perfect ear and perfect pitch that can do that, but 99% of people that are in the creative community can't do that. And so we're going to have to push ourselves, and we're going to have to make it a constant treadmill of progression to produce the material that we actually want to hear, that we want to make, in the vein that we want to make it. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Releasing music that you may not be comfortable with releasing is absolutely okay. Making any sort of creative medium that you find fault in is absolutely okay. And the reason for that isn't because the quality of it needs to be pristine, multi-million-dollar studio quality recording. The reason behind it is purely conceptual, in the nature of what I've spoken on before about the idea of saturation. It can be a low quality, lo-fi recording of a great song, and as long as the content is there, people will latch onto it, and people will resonate to it, and people will want more of it. And that is how your actual repertoire for growing into a sustainability with the music career is going to come from. And that's perfectly okay. There's nothing wrong with pursuing it that way. And that's one of the beauties of the propagation of the independent home studio setup, is the fact that people can do that. We have a unique opportunity in today's economy and marketplace where we have the ability to just constantly put out material like that, and people should be doing that. So in tandem with not ever letting somebody else get you down and put you down to keep you down, don't let that happen. And don't let yourself do that either. Don't let yourself be the obstacle that is preventing you from making music, making art, being creative in any way possible. Just don't do that, because that's bad. Don't be in your own way. And I've kind of taken a long time to learn that lesson for myself, of not allowing myself to be the obstacle, and becoming the primary songwriter for Hospitality. Because at first I wasn't. At first I was only involved on a production standpoint and from a writing standpoint of lyrics and vocalization. So I focused on arrangements and lyrics and vocals. And then for the second album, I picked up a little bit more, getting involved with the songwriting. Obviously I did drums for all of them, but for the way that we record, I should say, drums aren't always one of the first instruments that gets written. Most of the time, and I feel it should be a way, is rhythm and melody gets written first, and drums fill that in, and bass comes in to bind them together. And then for the third album, 80% of that I wrote, and then had Rob fill in the rest of the guitars, the rest of the 20%. And so with the projects that are coming up, a lot of it I wrote, and some of it's good. But that's the kicker is, and this is kind of the crux of the entire point of this conversation, is that what you think of it doesn't necessarily matter. What your peers think of it doesn't necessarily matter. What the average consumer and average listener of it thinks is going to be, in this aspect, more poignant. And the reason that is because if they see somebody that has energy and commitment to an ideal and personality, they're going to be a lot more prone to buying into it, to supporting it, to resonating with it. And that's the primary point. If you're making somebody happy with what you're doing, then that says more about what you're doing than somebody who is infinitely skilled at music theory, making something that is technically genius, but it's hollow and lifeless. So that is where I want to begin this discussion of ability. And so chime in with how you feel about it, your thoughts on it, your perspective on it. I would love to hear it. I hope you made it this far in the video, and if you did, give it a like, subscribe, and always leave your comments and your stories. And this is a discussion, so chime in. All right, have a good night, guys.